Welcome everyone to the Michigan Works Association 2021 Annual Conference. My name is Lupe Salazar Hamden and I'm a career advisor for Michigan Works Southeast. On behalf of the staff and the association and all of our sponsors, we thank you for being a part of the conference and a session titled The Importance of Collaborating, Partnering with Returned Citizens. Please be sure to visit the exhibitor booths during the designated exhibit hall times. Before we begin today's session, there are a few housekeeping items I need to share with you. Please make sure your audio is muted. In addition, during the session, the presenters are okay with everyone. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to enter those questions in the chat box as they will be answering the questions as we go. In addition, there will also be a session for Q&A. We are eager to hear your feedback about the conference in this session. Please take a few moments to complete this short survey that will be attached in the chat box. Presentations will be available post-conference on Michigan Works Association website. And now I would like to introduce your speakers for this session. Ellen Williams, Offender Success Program Manager with Michigan Works West Central. Angela Sprank, Community Coordinator. Nate Johnson, Advocacy and Engagement Strategist with Fresh Coast Alliance, and Jahan McKinley, Senior Continuous Improvement Manager.
Thank you for the introductions. I will add just a little bit to my introduction. I'm the community coordinator for Region 4 Offender Success Program. We have 13 counties here on the west side of the state. Michigan Works West Central is the fiduciary, and I've been in this role for almost 10 years. So I'm going to start with a presentation on offender success. It's very brief, but for those of you that might not be familiar with the program, this will give you an oversight of the services that we do provide to returned citizens. So I will share my screen here. All right, everyone, sorry about that. So I will quickly go through offender success and the services that we provide. So first you'll see this is just a map of the region, the prosperity regions, and then every region has an offender success program. So there's 10 coordinators throughout the state. And as I had stated earlier, Michigan Works West Central is the administrative agency for our program. Offender success does target moderate to high risk offenders, and this is based on the recidivism. And then we also can service anyone that is on parole. Typically, the parole board designates the offender, but this can be done once they're released by a parole agent as well. The biggest component that we offer is residential stability. So we have, as you'll see, 24/7 structured housing. We have 2 locations for that. We have base transitional housing. So in every county that we serve, we do have some form of transitional housing. Every county that we have has a resource navigator, and they are typically the first ones to interact with someone prior to release and then upon release. And they help them with any service that they need in the community. And then we do offer basic housing supplies. All of the houses are stocked, and then sometimes when they're moving into their own place, we can get them hooked up with things that they need as well. Other large component is the employment piece. So we do an assessment upon release when the employment provider, and there's an employment provider for every county that we serve. They do an assessment to see what is needed, what was completed inside prior to release. And then we have the job readiness piece. And as you see, that highlights the different things that could fall under there. Then we do job placement, which is actually placing them in employment. There can be temporary work experience, on-the-job training, and then we do job retention. The department does require us to track someone for a year or until their successful completion of parole. We can provide work supplies. We can also provide services for GED. And then under work supplies, it could be work boots, or if they're starting at a place and there's specific work tools required, we can provide those. And the state does have key performance measures, so we do have to track job placement and job retention rates. We also provide social supports, and as you can see, this could be various things such as a clothing voucher to Goodwill. If they're going into the shelter or housing, we might provide them with a food box and a hygiene kit. We do help them obtain their vital documents. However, most do come out with their vital documents upon release, and the Department of Corrections has partnered with Secretary of State. So we are seeing individuals coming out with their state ID or their driver's license. If they don't have these when they come out, then we will assist them in helping them obtain them. We do have law enforcement. This is where the agents will go out with law enforcement to do housing checks. We have mentoring programs. We have the CLEAR program, which is a partnership with a local police department. That was started in Kent County, and we continue that partnership with Grand Rapids Public Safety. But we also have this partnership in Ottawa County, where we work with Holland Police Department. And then we also have that in Muskegon, and that's actually through Fresh Coast Alliance, and there is a police officer that co-facilitates that class as well. We offer public transportation, private transportation, and again, we have the resource navigators in every county to make sure that the returning citizen is getting what they need. We have health and behavioral health services. Again, there can be an assessment. They might need to go into a COG group, or batter's intervention might be something that's required as their term of parole or their parole agent believes they need that. We're actually the first region in the state to offer trauma counseling, and that started as a pilot in Kent, Muskegon, and Ionia. It's had great success, and now we are starting 10-1 going to be able to offer that in all of the counties that we have in our region. If someone is not suited for a group counseling setting, we are allowed to provide them with individual counseling. One thing to highlight that we also started over in Region 4 back in 2015, we started a truck driving program. And as you can see, it has been extremely successful. Our success rate here in Region 4 is 96%. I've had 55 go through the program, and I actually have 4 right now that are somewhere within the program. So we're close to reaching 60 individuals in our region. And then that went statewide. It's offered in every region, and there's over 250 candidates that have went through that. And I highlighted some of the things that pertain to the truck driving program. And we actually also just started a welding program. This is in the very beginning stages, and it is mirrored off the success of the truck driving program. So it's set up very similar to that. And I think it's important to note that we have a very strong partnership with West Michigan Works and Michigan Works West Central, the admin agency, in getting people connected so they can be screened to see if they qualify for various funding options. And that's been very successful for us. And that is it. So I will stop sharing this. And hopefully I can come back to see everyone. Okay. So at this point, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll answer them about OS or at any time. If not, I'm going to actually turn it over to Jahan, and he's going to begin to discuss the importance of collaborating with returning citizens.
All right. Thanks, Angie. And good afternoon, everyone. When I was approached with this subject, I thought, man, we get into a point of normalcy when we talk about returning citizens in the transition. And the reason that I say that is because we're all familiar with the saying, "It takes a village to raise a kid." And I dug deep into saying, what does that really mean? What does it mean it takes a village to raise a kid. And so when you think about it, it's really the community saying, hey, as a parent, you're not on this journey alone. We're going to assist in the development of this young person, and take some responsibility and some accountability in the development of this young person as they transition from a toddler to a kid to a teenager to an adult. And I think that we can, if we were to take a consensus, I think pretty much everybody would be consistent in that definition of it takes a village. But when we talk about returning citizens, we don't dare use it takes a village, right? Because it implies a personal intimacy that many of us are still trying to figure out whether we want that relationship or that type of closeness, especially when it deals with criminal justice. It's a bunch of things out there, and so we don't really want it takes a village. And so we land on collaboration. I'm okay with it, right? But collaboration for the returning citizen is the same as it takes a village for the kid. The community is saying, hey, we have some responsibility and some accountability in making sure that your transition is one that is successful. Angie highlighted some things with the Offender Success Program that when you look at the numbers, is proven to be successful. I guess that's why they get the name success, right? But for the return citizen, the collaboration is important because it allows them to see or have different touch points and experiences from people that they probably normally wouldn't have crossed paths with, and so when I look at my first collaboration, it was actually with Bethany Christian Services here in Grand Rapids, and they were able to. I entered into the mentoring program where I met and mentor really doesn't define the relationship that he and I had, but I met Hank, and Hank is still in my life. He's 70-something years old. He just came over my house 2 days ago. And he's more like a father, grandfather figure to me. But without the collaboration of Bethany Christian Services, I wouldn't have had this relationship, or we wouldn't have crossed paths. And through Hank, I was able to learn about the world from a man perspective outside of family members. Sometimes family members can cover things up because they just want you to be successful in terms of just being free. But Hank was able to give me some different experiences from various viewpoints and touch points and experiences that he had. And so that was my first collaboration. My second collaboration was with Hope Network in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hope Network was able to get me a employment opportunity with Cascade Engineering. And I would work with Cascade Engineering. And I think that the collaboration that I had with Cascade Engineering landed me to this point of me being able to meet Angie and Nate and be a part of this. And so it set me on a career path, again, that which I probably hadn't known the experiences or the touch points or the resources that would have been available to me had I not had that relationship. And so when I look at my own collaboration, those are the collaborations that that I had. But as a plant manager at Cascade Engineering, I was able to hire several men that came in with a criminal background, because I was able to not just look at their criminal background, but just look at the body of work that they had completed prior to prison and after prison, and say, hey, this is somebody that has a talent and a skill set that can fill a position that I need. I'm going to take my chances on them. But had that been somebody else, or what with Cascade is different, but had he went to a different organization and went in front of a different hiring manager, without that collaboration, that employment opportunity may not have been there for him. And so I think it's super important in regards to collaboration, because again, if we just get rid of the personal intimacy of it takes a village to raise a person, then that's what collaboration does. It's not that we're raising them, we're transitioning them from one phase of life to another phase of life.
Thank you, Jay. Nate, are you on? If you're muted. There you go.
I am on. Sorry about that. Jay, thank you. I'm still trying to get caught up with technology as well, and I didn't realize I hit the mute button. Thank you, everyone, for coming and attending today. My name is Nate Johnson, and I'll take the alley-oop from Jay from here. And part of my story is similar to Jay's. I'm a returned citizen, been home 8 years, served 12 and a half years. And during the last 8 years, I had the opportunity and privilege of co-founding an organization that specifically works with those returning from incarceration and those even coming out of addiction, and being able to deal with some of the essential needs that are absolutely necessary when an individual returns to get plugged into in order to help with the process of becoming successful. Things such as a housing program that we have here at Fresh Coast. We have employment. We also own and operate our own therapy practice where we have professional therapists and counselors. The name of that is Alcohol Chemical Abuse Consultants. We have an office here in Muskegon, which is located just a block away from the Fresh Coast Training Center. And we also have an office in Grand Rapids as well. We also have reentry coaches, recovery coaches. We have groups and all different, everything. It's almost like, I guess we could describe it as like a one-stop shop. So if you need help getting your insurance on, your bridge card, housing, employment, one-on-one therapy with a counselor, if you need a reentry coach, the whole 9 yards, we got it here. And we want to be a benefit and blessing to those coming home. So we're able to interact with individuals literally on a daily basis to help really meet the really essential needs the individuals are having once during that whole transition period when they come home. And because time is limited, I want to get straight into it. I want to be able to piggyback off and pick up right where Jay left off at. And what Jay shared is exactly what I would share too, the collaborations. And I can remember back to a number of those different points of contacts where being able to collaborate with mentors and support groups and all the different places and organizations and people that end up helping me. Now, what is the byproduct of what that does and why it's so important for collaborating with returned citizens? When we sit back and we have to have the discussion of what is the why behind the what, most of the time individuals will focus on the what, the behavior, why an individual went to prison, or the what, oh, they did this in the past, they have the potential of doing this again. Well, what is the why that's behind the what? What is the actually motivating factor, the influence that may be propelling someone into a lifestyle of crime or addiction or whatever that individual's vice is? I think that this is the most important thing when we look at how did an individual end up in prison? How did an individual start on the track towards criminality? How did an individual start on the track of addiction? Well, there's usually this common thread when we take a step back and we look at it. What is the common thread? Well, you can look at 90% of all the individuals that are incarcerated come from fatherless homes. You can look at 75% of all incarcerated individuals dropped out of school, high school, and never graduated. And you have so you look at education, you look at the parents, you can look at, and there's a whole bunch of other statistics that go with this. So there's these common threads. But I've always asked myself is, why do individuals run out into the streets and get involved with these street gangs, especially if they have parents or aunts and uncles and grandparents or family members, people who love them, who say, well, why do they keep running out into the streets and getting caught up in this criminality? Why do they keep getting caught up in crime and they're getting locked up or this or that is happening? Well, the real reason, and I know it's part of my story and almost all of the individuals that I work with, is that individuals aren't running out to something in the streets. They're actually running from something that's not being met in the household. What is that? The thing that's not being met is the sense of belonging. that sense of belonging should be being met inside of the household. When it's not, the attraction and the allure of the streets and the counterfeit version of the real thing, the camaraderie, the sense of belonging, let's take street gangs as an example, that becomes very alluring, even though it's a counterfeit version of the real thing, and it only leads to destruction and it leads to going to jail. Now, individuals told all of us prior to, said, you know what, you keep doing this, this, and this, you're going to prison. So it's not that we didn't know that the behaviors had consequences that would ultimately land us in the Department of Corrections. We understood that. But there was still something deeper within that continued to motivate us to go in that direction. And I could say this, the real foundational principle is this, is that sense of belonging was not being met in the home. Therefore, we went out to look for it in a different place. And ultimately, it had tragic consequences to some of us. Why is that important? What's that got to do with what we're talking about now? When an individual returns home, 95% of all incarcerated people in the United States of America will return home someday. They are coming back to our communities, whether we like it or whether we don't. They're coming back. Now, how we choose to receive individuals when they return home, and that's how we choose to receive them on a personal level. That depends on how we choose to receive them as an institution, as an educational institution, whatever the case may be. However we choose to receive them is going to play a major role in the outcome of their success or failure. We're going to play a very major role in that. So if an individual comes home, and if just think of all these different institutions, from employments to educational institutions, we really wrap our minds around this concept of the sense of belonging. When an individual comes home and we accept them into what's happening, going back to school, there's no barriers being able to go back to college. There's no barriers to employment. There's no barriers to these different things. And we can really sense that sense of belonging with returning home. It's going to deal with the internal sense of success. Internally, I'm going to say, man, this is an opportunity where I have a chance to clean up what I helped mess up and actually feel a part of society. The sense of belonging is being met, and it's actually going to help in propelling us into our actual destinies and our purposes here. So when we come home, if an individual, think of the discouragement. I go to a certain employer and the door gets slammed shut. Well, and internally, you're going to think, okay, I'm not accepted. The sense of belonging isn't here with at least this particular employer, or whatever the case is. You go to apply for housing and you're denied because you have a felony. And so not only did I serve time for what I actually did, now I have these collateral consequences, which are forcing me to serve time after time. And it's all because the sense of belonging. You haven't come back to society. You don't belong in society. You're not accepted back into society. And that's going to play a very significant role in the individual's life. The potential disaster could be the person could go back out into the streets. Crime could continue. Then we'll continue having conversations about recidivism. Why did this individual live in this cycle of defeat and continue going back and forth in and out of prison? Well, just could it be that this is the case, that we didn't accept these people when they came home and the sense of belonging wasn't being met? And I think it's just, if we keep this out on the forefront, if we keep it out on the forefront and actually have conversations with individuals who may disagree with us on this point, and we actually sit down and collaborate with them to really give attention to the sense of belonging, the sense of the full acceptance back into society, I think we can see a game change in the outcome and the success of the individuals coming home. Angie?
Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Jay. I agree. I think when both of you were talking, I was thinking about the different ways. We've been doing this now, I believe, long enough. We see what works and we see what doesn't, and we're always trying to improve that. So I go back to the truck driving program as an example, because if we've put close to 60 individuals through it in Region 4, 250 statewide, I know in Region 4, out of those that went, I've only had one return to prison. So if we look at the different programs where the recidivism rate drops dramatically, and obviously not everybody wants to be a truck driver, I'm not saying that, but if we look at ways to collaborate where we can make sure that person is successful, right? Having them being offered higher education. Some do want to return and, you know, come out and go back to college. I know that you did that, Nate, and Jay, I know that you've done some classes as well. So, and then look at the position you're in, Jay. So I'm just wondering if one of you could kind of talk to that, as I think we're taking the next step, right? It's not just hire returned citizens, because we see that happening all the time now with the job market. And I believe a lot of employers have realized there's a talent pool there. But, you know, maybe if one of you could talk about kind of taking it to the next level of, you know, making college more welcoming, or different positions within the workforce field that returned citizens are ready for.
I can go first, Nate, if you want. So when I got out, I went to GRCC because this was before I got my opportunity at Cascade. And so I was filling out applications. I was kind of hitting the wall. So I decided to just go back to school, use my time and go back to school. It was a time consumer. Plus it allowed me to further my education, because there was definitely gaps in terms of what I needed to know in terms of being marketable from an employment perspective, and being successful. You know, I went in, I had a high school, at best, a high school education. And the workforce was beyond that 1991 education at that time. So I took an opportunity to go to GRCC to get an associate's in business. I was hired in at Cascade at the same time. And so I was going to school, I was working. Once I graduated, at that time I was a supervisor, but I still wanted more. In terms of education, because now as you start getting into management level positions, they want either experience or education. And so experience wasn't on my side, because I was only out for a few years. And so I had to make a choice in terms of, if I want to continue to go down the management path, experience was going to have to come later, but education could come sooner. And so that's what I continue to go to school. So I'm back in school. I'm trying to get my bachelor's degree in business administration. It's a self-paced program with California Coast University. I am behind because I moved from Texas a couple months ago, so I'm a little bit behind. But it's something that I feel that I need. But before I go back before I turn it over to Nate, so one of the things that happened with the collaboration, so I started working for Cascade Engineering, which I worked for Cascade for 10 years. And so last year or earlier this year, I wanted to see what the environment was around returning citizens and what my opportunities were, because a lot of times people associate you with a particular place, and they feel like, oh, well, this is just a social initiative, and these folks just like you because it was good press, it was good media for the organization as well as you. And for a long time, it wasn't that Cascade made me feel like that, but it was sometimes it was the audience that made me feel like that I hadn't worked as hard as I did in order to reach the levels that I did in Cascade, even though they know. People inside Cascade Engineering knew that, oh, this guy comes in and he works as hard as anybody else. And so I started applying for other positions here earlier this year, just because the market was open. The market was open for what I do. I am an internal consultant, so I go in and into plants, and I consult with the plant manager on how to make things better. And when COVID hit, that just opened up the doors for that career field. How can you make more on less? That's what the whole COVID experience has been in regards to businesses. And so I applied for different jobs in areas where I never thought that I would get hired. I just had my resume, my charm, and and just a bunch of folks that was behind me in terms of supporting me. And I landed with GE Aviation, which is a international company. I mean, it's GE. They look just the skill set that I had, and they gave me an opportunity to work. And so that's what happens. Not only is it just the collaboration part, but it's also what you're bringing to the table. And so what I was bringing to the table was I created a body of work that if you just looked at the body of work, there was no denying that I fit this position, as well as a work ethic. Again, I moved across the country from Texas to Michigan in 3 days, and I started on the 4th day because I'm ready to get to it. And so for people that's out there, yep, I'm tired every day. Yep, I don't get the rest that I want, but I know that it's equally important. I'll be able to eat my cake, probably with no teeth, but it's still gonna taste the same.
That's good. And I want to continue with that and talking about the importance of not just accepting returned citizens back into the workforce, but obviously taking it to the next level. And Jahan's a perfect example. Too much of the time we'll be labeled, or because of the felony, that becomes the biggest thing in the room that we individuals or employers may not be able to get their eyes around. And I think if an individual takes it from being able to go to the next level and being able to be in a leadership role, I look at my situation here. Here I am. I've come home from prison. Now, prior to that, I was a drug dealer. Now, I had the skill set of being an entrepreneur. But now when I chose to apply that in a very legal way, in a very significant role, I was able to collaborate, network, be around other like-minded people, and then come together to do what we're doing here, and which is starting and co-founding an organization called Fresh Coast Alliance. And it was able to take that skill set and do the same exact thing that I did on the streets, but just doing it legal now. And now we have 26 employees. We're influencing here over in West Michigan. We have people from all over the state that come here. And I'm a key person at the top. But what if people didn't collaborate and didn't believe in me and didn't choose to network with me, didn't choose to partner with me? Where would I be at? I would be, if that felony became the roadblock, or the stumbling block, then I would never have the opportunity to step into the fullness of my potential. And so I think it's very, very important. And I think on a real, very basic level is looking at work ethic, not letting the felony be the real issue. Move that to the side. Do they have work ethic? Do they have integrity? Are they consistent? Are they a person of the word? Are they dependable? Are they available? Are they teachable? All the basic things that we would expect in everyone else. And I tell individuals, listen, my first choice would be to half our staff are formerly incarcerated people. The other half is not. I have no problem hiring a formerly incarcerated people, but there are certain things that I expect. And if you don't bring these to the table, I don't care if you've been to prison or not, and I'm an advocate for that particular group of people. But if you don't bring these qualities here and you're not willing to develop them, I wouldn't hire you. I wouldn't think about it twice. Just not going to do it because you're not dependable and I can't work with you. So I guess if an individual brings that and they can actually meet the need with an employer, then I think it's very important that we allow individuals to come up and be in those positions of leadership, because now we get to play a role in actually helping an individual create a sustainable wage, actually take care of their families, and then we help reduce recidivism. And then when you have mom or dad who's actually making a livable wage and can take care of the family, that affects all the kids, the children, and then their children's children. And it's that type of investment into people and providing opportunities and giving individuals that that opportunity to step into a role and actually be in a place of influence, it could be a game changer for their whole family. Ange?
Thanks, Nate. Okay, we were answering some of the questions in the chat, and if anybody else has any questions, we would like to open it up now to a Q&A.
Hey, Angie, before you go there, I think, and this is just me just thinking, when we talk about collaboration, you know, our relationship, me, you, and Nate, you know, when you look at that, you know, it started off as us, you know, doing these things and coming together in this, and it really turned into a true friendship. You know what I'm saying? And so that's also the power of it as well. You know what I mean? You like I said, if those one or two events that we all came together, that I think we all got water at the same time or something like that. And it just turned into, we started working together with some events like this, and then it turned into a friendship. So that's also the power of collaboration as well.
I agree. That's a great point. And I often use that when I'm asked to speak at different things. You know, outside of just our work, there's such a ripple effect of collaboration and what that can do for many different areas. So I think that's great that you brought that up, Jay. Nate, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think that was great. It's well said. I mean, because you never know what's about to come down the road. I mean, look at this right here. This is, you know, from my opinion, it's a game changer, because we're able to get back into different prisons and give hope. And we get together, and then talk about resources and get to the proof that we can actually do this, but do it as a team, as a partnership. We would have never thought that if we didn't collaborate with one another. You know what I mean? Because there's certain things, I mean, think about it. You could put me and Jahan, you could put us back on the prison yard, and we can talk with the best of them, right? We have an influence with them. But then we may not have influence with certain people in the professional world, which you do, right? So when we can bring that professional and experiential piece together, it's a game changer. You know, those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but they lack the resources and power. So when you bring the two worlds together, it can ultimately become a game changer in what we see.
Agree. I think too, I did want to point out for the Offender Success Program, obviously we are working with returned citizens, but the admin agency and our director, Shelley Keene, take that very seriously. And in fact, we have a steering team that it's a requirement. And then within that steering team, we have 4 co-chairs. One is required to be the director, so Shelley. Another one is John Timmers, a regional manager with the Department of Corrections. Matthew McCulley, who is a warden. And then we have a community co-chair. And at one point, Jahan held that seat before he went to Texas. And when he left for Texas, we filled that with another returned citizen. So we find the importance of, even within what we're doing, collaborating on a higher level than just the bare minimum, because we want to make sure we are delivering services to the best of our capability. So again, I will welcome any questions. Does anyone have questions in regards to the Offender Success Program, what Fresh Coast does over in Muskegon? So far, the questions have been great. So if there's any questions you've already asked that you'd like me to elaborate on something, we can do that as well. I know one question, and I can touch on this while we're waiting for others, is Amanda asked, are there programs for people who are no longer on parole? And I think that is a very important question, because a lot of times people think you can only receive services if you're on parole. And that is for OS, yes. But there are so many agencies within different communities. So let me take Fresh Coast, for example. Anybody can walk in their door. You can be on probation. You can be someone that has substance abuse issues, and maybe you've never been in trouble with the law. You could have discharged from parole 10 years ago. you could have maxed out. So they will take anyone, and the services that Nate talked about, they will provide. So the employment services, and they do the CLEAR program. CLEAR program is funded by Offender Success, but all three of the programs that we have in Kent, Ottawa, and Muskegon will allow anyone to come in. So, you know, sometimes it's somebody on federal parole or federal probation, or again, somebody who isn't under some form of supervision. So there are various programs. Every region, like I said in the beginning, has a community coordinator. So like I let Amanda know, she's going to email me and I'm going to get her connected with the coordinator where she's at so that she could learn about some of the other agencies in her community that can help. Also, Michigan Works. Obviously, you know, every area has a Michigan Works service center. Individuals can go into those service centers and receive assistance with employment as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, I wanna Francisco asked a good question around terminology. And I'm gonna say it a different way, Francisco. And to illustrate the point that I was trying to make. And I'm gonna say it in this sense. What do you call you guys? Right? Because that's what the question really is, and that's why I'm saying that it is really about the person's preference or even maturity. Because if you ask me what you call me, I'm gonna say Jahan or Jay, right? I don't mind offender, I don't mind justice involved, I don't mind any of those. But at the end of the day, you're gonna call me Jay or you're gonna call me Jahan. And I think from a professional perspective, and that's what you said, you don't want to use the incorrect terminology. I think that once you reach a person that's at that professional level, they'll be understanding of whatever it is. You know, I'm not going to jump down your throat because you said return citizen as opposed to justice involved. Because like I said, at the end of the day, I think if we're sitting there talking, you're going to call me Jay more than you're going to call me justice involved or a return citizen. So that's why I said that.
Another question that was asked earlier was Carla asked, when they come out, what is the first step? Are they taught the basics, resume, interviewing skills, etc.? So I had answered that in there that yes, we use, it's called a black folder is what they leave the institution with. So we look through that to see what's been provided to them. But the employment specialist also just tries to get the whole picture of, and I'm sure this is similar to what Nate's staff does too, you know, what does this person want to do? What skill set do they have? And where do we need to start? You know, looking at term of imprisonment or what services, different facilities offer different services did they receive? And then I know our goal is to ultimately try to get them in an employment or a skilled trade or possibly higher education. We do assist people with signing up to go to college, applying for financial aid, those different things. And so we look at all of that to see what is it that they need. But outside, what I wanted to add to that, Carla, was we're also looking at what basic needs do they have? Do they have a roof over their head? Are they living in a healthy environment? Do they need a bus pass to get to different things? So employment is a big piece, but what we've learned is we really have to look at the individual as a whole, because if we're not addressing substance abuse or we're not addressing their homelessness, we can give them a great job, but most likely they're going to have trouble being successful because these other needs aren't being met, and we have to make sure that they are.
To Jamie Jackson, the question around offer strategies for how to convince returning citizens to want to collaborate with. So I got a different position on that. I have ran into folks that did not want to participate in programs or were skeptical about participating in programs. And I always tell, and I tell Angie this when we first met, it has to be a pull there from that person. You know what I'm saying? If you're pushing something onto that person, I think that's when you run into the unsuccessful opportunities. And I think that you create scars both ways. This person is making me do this, and my program is failing because of all of this. You know what I'm saying? But when it's a pull there, when there's somebody that's saying, hey, I need this, or this is what I'm looking for, I think that's where you will start seeing the success piece come in. So for me, I haven't convinced anybody to be a part of it. It's simple. When they want a job, bro, can you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and be at work at 7? Bro, you gonna work 5 days a week? You gonna work 8 hours a day? And they're straight up. You know what, man, I ain't ready for that type of schedule, or yeah, I'm ready. And the people that say they're not ready for that type of schedule, they double back in 30 or 60 days, and they're ready, and they're successful. The people who jump out the door and right away, after those questions, they're successful, because it's something that they want. It's not something that I'm pushing on them.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on to that, especially like if you're working with an organization, and this goes back to the importance of returned citizens, or formerly incarcerated people, is that now there's that relatability piece, and there's a demographic of people that we can reach out to and that we can bring into this space to receive resources and to receive the things that will be needed in order to be successful, like employment or whatever services that particular group offers. Now you've created this relationship where you have someone who can identify with this particular population. And now with them being here, then it takes down the wall and a lot of the stigma that they may have through preconceived notions about what the offender success is about, or what Michigan Works or Fresh Coast or whatever organization is. It tears down the walls when you have returned citizens there, because they'll have a voice with that particular demographic, and they'll be able to bring credibility to that. So if you had Jahan working for the Offender Success Program with MDOC, and he's the individual who has to go back into the prison to let people know about services. The fact that they know that he's been to prison and he's out now and he's doing this, that's going to give hope. And if he says, come down here, I'll help you get a job, the individuals won't even think twice about going down there, because he's the living proof that what they say is what they'll actually do. And here's a brother of the number saying, hey, you come down here, I'll make this happen. Then you'll have them coming in as droves. And I think it's part of the whole reinventing of reentry process, is that we have to get to the place where we bring the experiential world and the professional world together. It can't be no longer, if we're going to shoot for 100% of return and invest on our investments, we have to get to this place where it can no longer just be the professionals out here offering resources to formerly incarcerated. If we continue on that pathway, we're going to fail. It's not going to work. On the flip side, you can't have all experiential people leading the charge. That's not going to work either. We're going to have to learn how to bring these two worlds together. Everyone has to play their lane and what they're graced to do. And if we can learn how to work as a unified team like that, then we're going to see the results that every single one of us are actually looking for. But we can't continue doing what we've been doing in the past, where, we just get to show up and get resources, and then we're looked at or viewed as second-class citizens, or as if we don't have the capabilities and abilities to actually be in the professional capacity. When we have a lot to offer, because we have a voice, just having gone to prison, we have a voice that those who have never been to prison will never have with them. So if we're working in this space with returned citizen, I think it's very important. And even with some people, there may have to be a mind shift that, you know what, we need formerly incarcerated people who are out and they've proven themselves. I'm not just saying anyone. I'm talking about individuals who have the character, they have the skill sets, the abilities to actually do it, and they're balanced in their perspective, that these are the individuals we need to collaborate with. And I think if we do that, we'll really see a whole turn in this whole reentry thing. And then we can actually reinvent how reentry is supposed to be done. And I think we'll gain a lot more territory and produce a lot more fruit if we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll add quickly to that because I see we're almost out of time, but Jamie, in my capacity, that's what I do. I make sure I take Nate or Jay. I have a couple other returned citizens. I take them as much as I can to anything I can when I go into the prisons, when I go speak at a college, because they can grab the audience sometimes in a different way that I can't. So Nate nailed it. It's us working together. So whatever agency you're with, I would suggest, if you can, to collaborate with returned citizens who are out and are successful, and they will help you capture the new returned citizens coming out to buy into the service and the agency to get them connected. So I think that was it. I don't see any other questions, and I know we only have 2 minutes left, so.
And since we only have 2 minutes left, go Lions.
Well, maybe next year, if we continue losing, we'll have a good draft opportunity.
It's all about perspective.
I see what the coach is doing. He's stacking them, isn't he? Oh, I'm with you on that. Okay. I don't see any other questions. So this is the end of the presentation today. And I'd like to thank thank you to our presenters. We appreciate everyone's time. And I hope you all had some great takeaways and enjoy the feature of the conference. Thank you for attending the Michigan Works Annual Conference, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.